Now let's shed some more light on this and explore some more aspects. So joining me in this program will be Jennifer Chang, our correspondent in Seoul, and Jason Unruhe, political commentator analyst, joining us from Ontario. Good to have both of you. Let's go to Seoul first. Jennifer, bring us an update on this and say how could this affect, how greatly could this affect North's strategic status as they are claiming?
Well, it could greatly affect the North's status, and the North, in fact, said so. One of the reasons that the U.S. President Donald Trump has not been openly condemning or criticizing North Korea is because the North has imposed a moratorium on its own long-range missile testing. In 2017, December, it tested an ICBM that demonstrated to experts that it was on its way to being able to hit any U.S. city on the U.S. mainland with a nuclear-tipped warhead. Now, this is very concerning to the U.S., and in fact, they did the nuclear talks because they want to put a stop to this kind of ICBM testing. But in recent days, the North has been showing signs that it is making preparations for another ICBM test at its satellite launching station, which is a missile engine testing site and a site where they have rocketed off long-range missiles before. So this was very big news. And then today, the North, of course, said that they, in fact, did do a scientific test. Now, they did not exactly say what it was, but it's assumed to be a possible long-range missile engine test, which would enable the North to shoot a new type of long-range missile, a new type of ICBM that will demonstrate once and for all that it can hit the U.S. any point on the U.S. mainland, no problem, with a nuclear warhead, thus making the U.S. comply with its demands in further nuclear negotiations.
Okay, now let me go to Ontario to Jason Unruhe. Jason, how do you look at all of this unfolding? And you know, there is this year-end deadline that North Korea has given the U.S., and they have called this, the U.S. can decide their own New Year gift or Christmas gift, something like that, as I remember. So what do you think will happen? Do you think that the U.S. will take heed of this and go back to denuclearization talks?
I highly suspect that Donald Trump will only give a token mention to this, but do nothing of substance about this situation. The DPRK has already stated that they're no longer, that the whole denuclearization is off the table now, because the United States has been playing games with them, to having meetings and saying that there's something that's going to be done, and then they don't do it, and the DPRK is standing there, wonder what it is that they're supposed to do next. The U.S. is simply stringing them along. Donald Trump is making all kinds of vague promises, but not carrying them forward. This test is meant to send a message that the DPRK is serious, that if the United States is not going to be at the negotiating table, then the DPRK is going to go ahead with the testing further missile technology, which is capable of delivering a nuclear payload to the mainland of the United States. Now, all this is that the DPRK is not going to back down. If the United States does decide to invade them or take maybe some kind of apocalyptic action towards them, forgive the term, they will retaliate. They are more than capable of defending themselves from U.S. aggression. And this was a situation that both sides tried to avoid by simply coming to the table and the U.S. removing some of their unjust and sometimes often illegal sanctions against the country, but the United States seems unwilling to do so. Currently, Trump is bound up with his impeachment investigation, so I don't think he'll put too much effort into dealing with the situation in the DPRK. Maybe a token mention here or there to make it look like he's doing something, but I think all of his focus right now is probably dealing with his pending possible impeachment.
Let's go back to Seoul. Jennifer, my colleague talked to you like a couple of hours ago, I believe, then, and you said that there are some indications that Washington could comply with this year-end deadline of DPRK. Tell us about those signs.
Well, the Trump administration is refusing to acknowledge that North Korea is going on with its nuclear testing, for instance. They do not want to upset these denuclearization talks, and they would like these to succeed because Donald Trump's reelection hinges a great deal on his relations with North Korea, his relations with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The American public greatly admires his friendship with the North Korean leader and his success in bringing the U.S. to the negotiating table with the North Koreans for the first time in history to try to resolve the nuclear issue peacefully. The U.S. public does not want war. At the same time, they do not want to be seen as bowing before a North Korean threat. So in the long run, they have really no choice but to negotiate with the North Koreans on the North Koreans' terms. Otherwise, they are looking at the possibility of a preemptive attack. That's the only option they have left, and that would mean an all-out war between the North and the U.S. that could also lead to a global war. And the U.S. has already decided that it is going to try to resolve this diplomatically and only as a last resort use military force to try to resolve the nuclear issue.
I see. Well, so far, Mr. Trump has been a peace breaker rather than broker. Let's see if that happens. Let me ask Jason what he thinks. Jason, if the denuclearization talks resume, are you optimistic something will come out of it and the U.S. under President Trump will be able, as Jennifer said, to take care of this issue peacefully?
Well, there's definitely a possibility this can be done. If peace negotiations can be worked out, there is a great possibility there. My question is whether or not Donald Trump is going to bother putting the kind of effort into it, given the level of distraction he faces right now. This has always been a major selling point for him, is using his relationship with Kim Jong-un to promote the image that the U.S. is not trying to push the world into war, even though it very much certainly is. This has always been their very strong propaganda moment for Trump to see how his connections and whatnot can eliminate some of America's enemies, some of it be done peacefully. One of the things he did constantly drum about during his campaign was the wars that had been declared by previous both Republican and Democrat establishments, and that was something that he opposed. But there is the possibility there for peace. Negotiations can happen. The question is whether or not the United States is going to step up and actually engage in real negotiations.
Okay, we'll get to wait and see. Thank you for that. Jennifer Chang, our correspondent, who joined us from Seoul, and Jason Unruhe, political commentator and analyst from Ontario. And this brings us to the end of this news review. Thank you for watching.